Hello, and welcome back to the LFA Purpose Podcast, where we offer fresh insights to help you rediscover the clarity and courage that already live within you. I'm your host, Father Leo Armbrust, and in each episode,
we feature guests who share something in common in their own way. They are healers within their profession. They have allowed their passions to guide their path. I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Dr. Spencer Barron, a man who discovered his purpose more than 40 years ago and has dedicated his life to helping others heal, perform, and reach their fullest potential. Long before chiropractic care was widely accepted in professional sports, Dr. Barron saw an opportunity to bring a new approach to injury prevention, recovery, and performance. He became a pioneer in bringing chiropractic medicine into the football world, ultimately serving as the Team Chiropractic Physician for the Miami Dolphins for 19 seasons. He has also worked to heal elite athletes at Nova Southeastern University, the Miami Marlins, Florida Panthers, and Major League Baseball teams, including the New York Mets, San Francisco Giants, and Colorado Rockies. Dr. Barron continues to educate and inspire as the co-host of Cracking Backs podcast and the author of Secrets of the Game. Today we'll explore not only his remarkable career, but the journey behind it, how he found his calling, trusted his path, and built a life of purpose through healing others. You know, Spencer, it's really good to have you here today. We've been friends for many years. I first met you through the Miami Dolphins when you would come into the training room. And I remember even a few times when I took advantage of your expertise and skill in the training room when something wasn't moving right or I had a little pain here. And I want to tell our viewers and our listeners that if I had an ache or a pain or something was disconnected or out of joint, this man put me back together again. It was like if I was the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, and Dorothy was putting back all the straw and the hay that had fallen out of me. This man put me back together again.
Leo, it was great meeting you back then and even to this day, and you were easy to fix up. It's the other guys that were a mess.
Some of those guys that you had to work with. Mind you, ladies and gentlemen, friends, and people that have been viewing us for a while here on our podcast, this guy had to work with people that were 3 times his size, and they were mammoth in terms of their muscles and their build and their physique. And how did you deal with that kind of formidable patient?
It definitely took some learning experience. It helps when, chiropractic, which is what I do for a living, there's a science, art, and a philosophy to it. So I've often said we learn the science part. The philosophy part is just like any other belief system, whether it be faith or medicine or natural medicine or approach like that. But the art is what is important when you're delivering that kind of what we call spinal manual manipulation or extremity manipulation. And I often tell and lecture to my interns or to any other doctors, be a black belt 10th degree in the art of healthcare, of that area of healthcare, which is chiropractic.
That's a great description. Thanks. Healing is an art.
Yes.
So what led you into this art form? What was the incentive and your motivation when you were thinking about a career? Was it something you discovered about your personality, your skills, your gifts? I mean, tell us about that journey you've had making the decision to pursue this path in your life.
Well, thanks. That's always a fun question because so many kids, so many teenagers, adolescents, they are wondering, what can I do for the rest of my life? What can I even do right now as far as a profession? So I was gifted with the opportunity to ask myself the question, what can I do that would be fun for the rest of my life? So I had to figure out the elements of what that was. It was, healthcare, but not like a medical doctor. I felt like back then, 45, 46 years ago when I was deliberating that thought was, it was all about conveyor belt medicine back then. Write a prescription, you tell me your symptoms here. To me, that was cold and calloused, and to some degree it still is.
Correct.
Then I thought, my family said, you'd be a good lawyer. You always have an answer for something. I go, no, it's just my ability to rationalize. And so I started to think maybe law or psychology, because I was always fascinated by the mind and what we think and what drives us to do anything. And back then, though, there was no law for me, law or being an attorney was there's always a winner and there's always a loser. Do I really want that kind of aggression every day to think I got to beat this guy? No,
That's an interesting insight.
Yeah. Now, the evolution of law, there's all these other, more comfortable areas that aren't so
Confrontational.
right. Yeah. But the other option was psychology. Now, unfortunately,
You would have made an excellent psychologist.
well, thanks. But my image back then of psychology was somebody laying on a couch and going, so tell me how it all started. And I'm telling you, I know me, narcolepsy. The first 5 minutes, I would just go, and I'd hear, doctor, are you listening to me? So
Know thyself.
Yeah. So I needed something active, but I didn't know. And then I am telling you, I was 18 years old. I was in the gym. And a buddy of mine walks up to me. I remember this day like it was yesterday. And he goes, you'd be a good chiropractor. Leo, I go, what is a chiro? What is that? I've never heard of such a profession. And I started investigating this thing called chiropractic. I said, wow, this fits every element. I can do something healthy, something sports oriented. I could specialize with active people and athletes. I can. It's not a drug oriented thing, so it fits my philosophy of how I was brought up with a more holistic approach.
Correct.
Be your own boss, and you just happen to have the side effect of making good money. So I said, this is for me. Now, as I investigated, I go, holy night, 8 years of school. I'm not
You
sure
had
if I
8
wanna
years
do
of
that.
schooling,
You get
Spencer?
back then. Yeah, back then I needed 3 years of prerequisites. Back then, now you can take your prerequisites while you're in that university.
While in the program.
Some of them. And then back then also it was 4 years. Now it's condensed to 3 or 3.5 years. So it's a little faster now. But back then there was only 16 schools in the country.
Really?
Yes, only 16 chiropractic university or colleges.
I'm
Now
sure our listeners and our viewers did not know that.
No. And I got accepted to a few of them. I wanted to go with one that was reputable, and that was Texas Chiropractic College in Houston. And I was accepted to there was a new one called Life College that most people were familiar with. There was no schools in Florida. This one was in Georgia, okay, Marietta, Georgia. And it was brand new, and it was so new that they were operating out of a convent. And I thought, geez, I'm a Jew. I'll get struck by lightning. That ain't happening. So I picked the one in Houston, Texas. Little did I know. I am so lucky.
Talking about the hand of God?
Things fall right into my lap. The school, Texas Chiropractic College, was on Spencer Highway.
Your name?
Yes. And then one of my favorite movies at the time was Urban Cowboy with John Travolta. And a segment of it took place in Gillies. And my first love and I, we loved the movie and always wished, man, I would love to, what would it be like to be in Gillies? It was down the block from the school.
No.
So she went with me to visit the college.
There's no such thing as a coincidence.
I like to, yes, I agree. I think when you are in the right place with the right thoughts, things fall into your lap.
And you recognize that.
Yeah.
Now, there was a time, wasn't there, when people did not view chiropractic as a viable, recognizable, reputable healthcare system practice? Tell us about what you had to go with that struggle and how people viewed you and your profession.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've been in this journey now, elevating its credibility and its position and status.
True. Well, there are still some old thoughts about being a quack, and my closest buddies would tell me that I got my license on the back of a matchbook cover, if you remember that.
That's cruel.
Yeah, but I loved it. I was always fond of being antagonized because I always believed that was
Made you stronger?
it made you stronger, and they like you. If they didn't like you, they wouldn't even talk to you. And that carried on even in the NFL and Major League Baseball. If they rag on you, that means they like you. So that's. I remember the early years. It was always about, there's no research on spinal manual manipulation or extremity mobilization. There's no research. No, show us the research. And that I would have debates and discussions with orthopedic surgeons or just regular medical, or even lay people that didn't believe
Or understand.
at all. If you didn't understand it, you didn't believe in it, So I will say, no matter how much I learned in chiropractic college, even my own peers, because I got such an extensive education in physical examination and diagnosis and so on, my own peers that went to a school that wasn't that adept in their education, they would call me a medipractor. So it was almost like a child that had a white parent and a black parent. They weren't accepted by either, the black society or the white, group. So I thought, all right, well, you know what? There's a lot of good that I'm doing for people, whether it's science backed or not. I think the element of listening was what everyone wanted.
Isn't that a terrific insight?
Yeah.
I often said it in the medical profession. Yeah. I don't care how much you know until I know how much you care. Oh. It's one of my favorite lines. And you have a facility, a place in Broward County. Yeah. Tell us about your work there, what you're doing, and the many different sports teams, professional and amateur, that you're working with.
My first practice was in North Miami, and that's where I was pretty much after I moved down here at 11 years old. That's where I resided with family, and I always wanted to practice there because I gleaned a tremendous number of friends and good friends from high school that we're still friends with. Anyway, bottom line was opening up a practice there. I never, ever intended on specializing with pro athletes. What was always fascinating was the science behind biomechanics. And yes, I love when little Miss Jones comes in and I ask, how are you doing today? And their response is, oh, I'm feeling good, or I'm feeling like garbage. To me, that's very subjective. Yeah. And that was what was so fascinating. And I've always said, I'm often asked, well, how did you get involved at, the Miami Dolphins or the Marlins or even at the Panthers at the time? How did you get involved with all these other teams? Well, the reality was I never pursued it. I just always got involved. I felt what was important was the profession, not Spencer Barron, the profession. If I can elevate the prestige of the profession, then that was important to me. I will say that there was something that was very magical that to this day, it just blows me away. The day I graduated Texas Chiropractic College. Now, let me give just a 10-second history. I was painfully shy growing up. You would never think so.
I would not believe that.
No. Painfully shy growing up. And I would always keep to myself, but I was always an equal opportunity friend, which meant I didn't care what you look like, where, disabled, any color, any religion. I was always friendly to you, and I would always wave, say hi, go out of my way to do things. And I wondered, I got all those superlatives in high school. Somehow, I don't even know how it happened, most friendly, most likely to succeed, things like that. And I go, how did that happen? But when I went to Texas Chiropractic College, I didn't know a single soul. I'm in a place where I've never been. And I thought, I'll just be myself. And next thing I know, I'm accumulating friends at Safeway and Kroger's and the post office, and not to mention all the friends I made in chiropractic college. And the day I graduated, I thought to myself, and now the world. I get a little choked up with that. What that meant to me was I need to take a profession and be proud of it enough that it becomes a household word. Because back then, we were still quacks. So that to me was...
You took this on as a personal quest of yourself to elevate the credibility of what you were doing. It became your instrument for not only improving yourself and your own self-image, but also at the same time creating a visibility for your talents and your skills with your personality that so meshed together that it made you one person. You couldn't separate what you did from who you are.
Thanks, Leo. So true.
And furthermore, let me, if I may, you might want to explain how you were able to elevate that for the National Football League through the help of a mutual friend of ours, Kevin O'Neill, the former head trainer of the Miami Dolphins. Tell us a little bit about that journey and how both of you work together to bring chiropractic medicine to the National Football League. You did this. You were a pioneer.
Thanks. But it was such a passively active thing. It was something that I wasn't like desperate to have. It was just naturally important to me. And Kevin O'Neill is one of my favorite people on the planet.
And he regards you the same way.
I love that guy. In so many ways, he was just so instrumental in being, what a friend of chiropractic. What a friend of...
And a believer.
Yeah. And this is what I often tell a lot of doctors that want to get involved in any team, even if it's an intramural team or a college or high school team. You need to be trusted first. You are in their home, working on their players, being the athletic, the head athletic trainer, working with the orthopedic surgeon. You need to develop a trust so they can look away and know that you are taking care of their athletes. And that's how I felt. It took time.
Boy, that's a speech you could give to just about anybody in the medical profession.
Oh yeah. It's funny because one of my responsibilities that Kevin and I had talked about was to eventually call every team in the NFL and find out from their head athletic trainer with Kevin O'Neill's name behind it, do you have a chiropractor? And back then there were like 3-4 teams that didn't have a chiropractor, and then there was another several teams that didn't have an official chiropractor but would refer to one. And so what I realized was that was important, is to garner our teamwork, if we could put together a force of one, then we can elevate the profession. So the beauty was, I don't care. There was a point in time where I would have debates with orthopedics and medical that was, when it was confrontational in the true sense of angst. It was, and then I started realizing, I don't need to do that. All I have to do is go, hey, do you know how many chiropractors are working on multi-million-dollar athletes? I go, that says in it of itself the validity and the power of what we do. By the way, have you ever been involved with a pro team? No, they can't say that. So I go, that credibility speaks in.
And especially the number of professional athletes, male and female, who take and make advantage of having a chiropractic in their inner circle, who will work with them when they need adjustments, when they need some kind of treatment that maybe the traditional medical people don't offer. But you know what? You're saying something very critical. They trust you. And when you can establish that relationship between doctor and patient, that is the most important, essential element of any relationship in that arena.
Well, you would know best, because people need to trust you with their personal issues and secrets and what have you.
Confidentiality is a key component.
It is. So what I often educate I have a revolving door of interns that come in, because I don't care how old I am, I just love the energy of the youth that they bring to want to heal people, So I direct that energy into their ability to, number one, on day one, when you're listening to anyone, it's big eyes, big ears, small mouth.
You say that?
Yes.
To your interns?
I do. I say that to anybody who wants to be, wants to hear someone. Even if you're going, when I lecture at high schools to kids and stuff like that, I go, even if you're on a date with a girl.
Big eyes, big ears, little mouth.
Right. Ask questions. And what I realized over the years is I really I refer to myself as a detective of health. That's all.
I like that.
That's it. So what I have found is that if you listen closely to a patient, I don't care if it's year 1 or year 40 of practicing, you're always practicing, listening, and reading between the lines, because that patient will tell you exactly what's wrong.
This is where I think it's so important when you talk about the level of connections that the patient and the doctor have. Establish that connection of trust, which is so critical for any relationship. And as you say, it could be something as simple as someone you work with, or someone you go to school with, or someone that you see occasionally. You visit at a bar or a restaurant, someone you engage with on a maybe even a frequent basis. And the more you can establish that relationship with them, the difference you make in each other's lives that's mutually beneficial. Yes. And I often think that connections, as you're talking about, especially from a physical perspective, tell us about what it's like to understand the bodily connection, how the foot is connected to the ankle and the ankle bone's connected to the toe, and tell us about how you have come to understand that if something is hurting up here, it's probably because of something down here. How do you make those connections? How do you do that?
I just got goosebumps when you talked about that, because that to me is one of the most magnificent things that a chiropractor can understand above any other healthcare provider, because we have the ability to help alter biomechanics. So let me give you a perfect example that's a real stretch in this, that really elucidates, it elaborates on exactly what you're talking about. We had a Major League Baseball player come in. He came in because he had pain here. He is the fastest pitcher in Major League Baseball, period. He's a closer. And he doesn't mind if I talk about him, but I won't mention his name. Pain here all season, and they treated him and treated him and treated him, and his statistics after 11 years were going downhill.
Declining.
Which you would almost expect from a seasoned pitcher.
Especially after 11 years of throwing that hard.
Thank you. Well, they did an MRI. The team did an MRI of his elbow and said, "Oh, you have osteoarthritis." Fine. We all have osteoarthritis. So he comes in, and upon referral from another athlete, and I do an evaluation on him. And right from the start, I turned to my intern. Oh, actually, he was a new doctor. And I said, "You know what? I've been doing this for 37 years at the time." I go, "It's time for you to shine. I want to tell you, check his big toe." What? Check his big toe. He has not said a word about his big toe. Think about a pitcher. Where is all that power and positioning coming
His lower
from?
body.
Thank you. Check his big toe, because that's the push off the mound that's requiring more. If that's
torque.
faltering, he's picking up all the power here to be at 105.8 miles per hour.
The whole body is connected.
Right? No joke. He checks his big toe, and I'm standing there, and I know it's almost like you knew what to expect. I'm not a gambling man, but
you knew it.
Checks his big toe. Oh, by the way, it hurts. Oh, by the way, it's limited in range of motion compared to the non-dominant or not uninvolved toe by a significant amount because of scar tissue. Work on his foot, and so the next day so he started working on his foot, and I had to explain to the pitcher what was going on. Now, mind you, he spoke broken English but fluent Spanish. So I had somebody come in. I wanted to be perfectly clear that he understood what we were doing. He was so happy about it, but hated every second of us cranking on that big toe, working the toes and feet and everything. And so ends up the next day, the new doctor, my associate, was so excited about this that he pulled up video of this guy from Major League Baseball pitching. And I go, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen him pitch." Ask him about his knee on the same leg. Ask him about his knee. He goes, "Oh yeah, that hurts too." How come nobody's worked on lower extremity? Because his mechanics were so awkward. You do that 1,000 times in 11 years, 100,000 times in 11 years, you're going to have other stuff going. We worked on that too. This is no kidding. He was a free agent that year. So he was hoping to get picked up again. A new team looks at him. They do an MRI on his elbow. There's nothing there. His statistics were through the roof.
He's still pitching.
Yes, he is. He got offered a $1.2 million contract or something, some crazy.
So now, how long
contract.
has he been pitching?
13 years.
13 years.
And his
and
statistics are up.
You extended his career. But again, and I think this is a metaphor for what you're saying. You talked about your connections to people like Kevin O'Neill and others that you have met in your life that help accelerate your career in this profession. And then to be able to take that metaphor and translate it to what you do, how the body is all connected, the importance of understanding connections and how we're all affected by something in our life. It could be so minimal, so incidental, almost invisible, and how you can make that connection. Take somebody with the skill of an artist to understand the body. Look at Michelangelo. When he was sculpting, his ability to understand human anatomy and how he could translate that into forms of human marble still to this day mystifies me, because his insight was so clear and so precise that he could look at a block of marble and see the figure imprisoned in stone and then release it. That in many ways is exactly what you do. To be able to look at your patients and see within them, not just the obvious pain here, but what might be causing that pain from a different part of your body. So just localizing it isn't enough. You have to understand the whole dimension of a person.
Yes. It's things like that are offshoot. There's offshoots from healthcare that I've been fascinated. If I may indulge in one of the most mesmerizing experiences. You mentioned an artist like Michelangelo. So he was able to capture the human body with such detail, and whether the figure was in front of him or not. There is a painting in a museum in London, in the gallery, the London Gallery. It is the size of this whole building. It is enormous, and it is the execution of Lady Jane Grey. It is so deep. I could not help but watch. I couldn't even move. Where the rest of the group moved on, I just sat there mesmerized at the detail. And when I looked into this painting, the artist did this 100 years after the execution of Lady Jane Grey.
Oh my!
How did he capture the expressions and the detail? I'm telling you, I couldn't move. But my point is, even when you are insightful enough to someone's issues, someone's challenges, their personal challenges, you have an ability to enmesh yourself in their experience. And that's what trust is developed on. And so it's not just healthcare, but I'll tell you what, a doctor, and this is what I often say to my interns, a doctor is supposed to inspire their patient to heal.
Which the two Latin words inspire comes from inspire, which means to breathe, to breathe into. So what you're doing as a doctor is you're breathing life, ruah, as they would say in Hebrew, the wind, the breath of God. You're breathing life back into. You're regenerating so many people that you're restoring and regenerating life. What a brilliant description it would be for a healer to be able to do that. Because for the longest time, death was defined as when a person stops breathing, not when their brainwaves cease. It's when their breath stopped, death had come.
Because if you look, here's a message to every person listening to this podcast or watching. I'm going to tell you something. If you have a doctor that has zero empathy and says, "Oh, test results show that you have cancer," you have not engaged in that person's emotions and experiences. They're aloof. It's like complacency. You're not a doctor. You're a technician. You're just someone reciting what. Or you go to a doctor. You say, "My knee hurts." Oh, let me get an MRI done. No. The art of a good physical exam is lost. Why? New York Times even published an article saying the average time a doctor spends, or is allowed to spend, or I should say, able to spend with a patient is 7 minutes. Why? Because insurance companies have done that to us.
Yes.
That, and not me, because I
No, it's true.
won't engage in that experience.
That's why I believe people sometimes with traditional medicine today are walking around so dissatisfied they can't find the right doctor. They can't find someone who's listening, who's empathetic. And the practice of the tribe that used to be with the healer knew everyone, not just by name, but by physical attribution, problems, issues. And the healer was respected because their wisdom is what led them to the practice. It was a gift from a higher power. Healing wasn't just a study. It wasn't just an exercise in memorizing medical criteria or being able to examine someone. I think when you describe that story of working with your intern, rather than telling the intern or even the patient what you suspected might be causing the issue, you thought, you knew, you believed it was something different than the elbow.
Yes.
And your credibility rests on the fact of your insight and your wisdom. You were able to recommend it. And the way you were able to draw that out of the intern and the patient was not just, oh, I'm going to tell you what's wrong, or I'm going to conclude from my years of experience, this is what the problem is. You let them discover it themselves. That requires someone with a terrific sense of self-esteem. It doesn't need to prove him or herself.
Agreed.
You rest on your wisdom.
Yeah, it's true. You know, it's like and I often tell my interns, a white belt in martial arts will go around kicking everybody's ass just to see what they can do. A black belt 10th degree remains humble and knows he can knock you out with one punch. You know, it's the confidence and the personal power that you have when you have mastered the art, science, and philosophy of healthcare, and you're able to communicate. I always say the two most important things as a chiropractor. Two most important things you need to do. You need to be a black belt 10th degree in the art of spinal or extremity manipulation. 2, extraordinary social skills. What do I mean? The big eyes, big ears.
Big eyes, big ears, small mouth, ask questions.
Big time.
You know, what I find most impressive about our conversation today is the fact that you have a philosophy of healing, because it comes from your self-understanding. Once you discovered, Spencer, what your gifts and skills were, you found out what your purpose in life was, and you aligned your entire journey pursuing that purpose. Look, and that's what you did, define. You aligned yourself with that mission, that project, and that goal. And you know what? You found it. And I really want to congratulate you for all the good things that you've done. We'll talk about this more further in our second conversation, and we look forward to it. Thank you for all you do for me and for so many others.
Thanks, Father Leo. Appreciate you.